A day after the Denver Broncos season ended in a heartbreaking loss in the AFC Championship game, the Broncos were back in the building for one final time on Monday for locker cleanout to get their things, and they had one final team meeting with Sean Payton. This is the last time this group is ever going to be together, and that's why there was a lot of varied emotions in the Broncos locker room when we were able to talk to a lot of players on their way out. Sad, disappointing, but encouraged for the future. Let's break down all of those emotions that were here. We got a ton to break down. Personally, I learned a lot more today than I thought I was going to when I showed up here this morning, and I'm going to give it all to you, what we learned as the Broncos now head into their offseason. Make sure to subscribe to this video, give us a thumbs up, really helps us, and we're not going anywhere. We're going to be covering the Broncos for the next 12 months, year in, year out. We're going to be here with the Broncos, so make sure to follow us for more information. All right, let's dive in. Garrett Bowles said this was worse than the Miami Dolphins loss that they had a couple of years ago. This game was harder than the 70-20 loss that the Broncos had. Garrett Bowles said he's still mad, still not over it, and I think that that hits with a lot of Broncos fans of just about how disappointing this end was to the season. But you had other guys say that the Broncos are set for the future. In fact, Alex Singleton thought the Broncos were going to the Super Bowl so much that he already had an Airbnb booked for his family. That's how confident they were that they were going to win this. Other players said, yeah, I definitely thought we were going to be the AFC champions, but there's hope for the future as well. Dre Greenlaw said, we got the talent to get it done in the future, and he's talking about the Super Bowl. Talanoa Hufanga said, we're not trying to make this a one-and-done deal. We're trying to make this an era. So that's how it's disappointing in the locker room, but also encouraged for where they are. Some other guys said how the Broncos have completed a couple of steps in getting to a Super Bowl, and now they'll just build off of there. That's now the new standard for the Broncos. Okay, so that was the mood here as the 2025 Broncos team now moves on into 2026. Let's get to some specifics of free agents, potential free agents that we talked to today. And for the first time since he got injured, we talked to J.K. Dobbins, and I'll tell you what, it's always a joy talking to J.K. Dobbins, and he said he was, quote, very close to playing in the AFC Championship yesterday, and he said, quote, I think I could have helped real good, and I completely agree with that. He said if the Broncos would have made the Super Bowl, he would 100% have played in the Super Bowl. He was so close to playing yesterday after practicing all week leading up to it. He said he wasn't even rushing back. He was just doing what his body was allowing, and his body had a miraculous timetable to heal and get back. He says he wants to be a Bronco. In fact, not just a Bronco this coming year, he wants to be a Bronco for life. He said, I'm a Bronco and a Buckeye. He made it very clear that he wants to be with the Broncos moving forward. He is a free agent and had an incredible 10-game stretch, getting 700 yards. He said, he joked with the media, he said, you guys thought I was going to have 700 yards all year. I got 700 yards in the first 10 games. But then unfortunately that Liz Frank injury ended his season there. So we'll see if the Broncos do sign J.K. Dobbins. Personally, I think he's a heck of a player, and when he's healthy, man, he is so good. He did say he does not feel like he's injury prone, so we'll see how the Broncos move forward with him. Another guy that wants to be a Bronco and that I know Broncos Country wants to have back is John Franklin Meyer. He talked today and he said, I love this team. I love everything about it. I love the guys, and I would want to be back. But this is the first time that he's been a free agent. So he said he doesn't really know what the process entails moving forward. He did confirm that the Broncos have not initiated any talks with him to return. And he was asked, well, other guys on the defensive line, in fact, Malcolm Roach, DJ Jones, and Zach Allen all got paid. Are you kind of bummed that you didn't from the Broncos? And he said, I don't care about that. I'm happy for my guys that they got paid. And ideally, he wants to be back here. But as JFM said, the Broncos have not had any contract conversations with him, so it does not appear that he's going to be back, but that could always change in the future. And man, we talked to Malcolm Roach and Zach Allen, and both of these guys couldn't talk highly enough about JFM, and if it were up to them, they would keep him. In fact, Malcolm Roach sent a message to the front office. He said, quote, "Just give JFM his money. I've been saying it all year." Zach Allen said JFM's the best teammate he's ever played with, and then went on to say that when he retires, when Zach Allen retires, and he buys a beach house somewhere, he's going to name it the JFM house, because John Franklin Meyer helped him get to this point and helped him earn the big contract that he had. So Broncos Country wants JFM back. Broncos teammates want JFM back. We'll see if anything changes and the Broncos do end up offering him a contract. Another guy that's an impending free agent is Alex Singleton. And Alex Singleton said he wants to be back as well because everyone loves this team, what they're building on. Now, Singleton had some fun with it. He joked that he wants to be the highest paid player ever, and then said, "The Broncos have some $35 million in cap money opening up from Russell Wilson. I'll take that $35 million." So Alex did it in a fun way. He does want to be back, but he is a free agent, and he's coming off the best year of his career, and he actually admitted that too. Said, despite coming off in a torn ACL last year, and then obviously dealing with testicular cancer throughout the season, he still had his best season ever. And I know that the Broncos do want him back. We'll just see if those two sides can come together before free agency starts or when free agency opens, because he is going to get a decent contract, pretty good contract on the open market. A guy that is not a free agent, let's move on to some guys who are still under contract through next year. We talked to Dre Greenlaw, and man, he called his season up and down, and I completely agree. When he was in there, he was a difference maker in the run game, but obviously struggled with injuries and was in and out at times throughout the season as it went on. He said being healthy for this full offseason is going to be huge because, of course, he was still kind of recovering from that torn Achilles that he suffered a couple of years ago. Last offseason, the Broncos signed him. Then he gets a quad injury, which lingers throughout the offseason, training camp, during the season as well. So he said it's going to be a huge help to be healthy. And another thing that's going to help him a lot is being in the same system if Vance Joseph stays here. Because last year, he said when he saw the Broncos playbook, it was like Spanish to him because of how many different things there were in this playbook. He talked about how the defense that the 49ers run was so simple compared to what the Broncos do, and so it was a big learning curve there. So he said it's going to be very beneficial to have another year in under his belt staying with the Broncos. We also talked to Evan Engram, who signed with the Broncos last year in free agency, and man, I thought what Evan said was fascinating. One more time, just if you subscribe to this channel, hit us with the thumbs up. Really helps us. We appreciate it a lot, and make sure to not go anywhere because we're going to be covering the Broncos all year long as well. Okay, so what I thought Evan Engram said was fascinating because Evan was very honest. He said, "I thought I did things well that I was asked to do, but it was clear listening to Evan that he thought that he was being held back a little and not given the opportunities that maybe he thought he was going to have coming here." And I think every Broncos fan can agree with that. I personally thought Evan was going to have a much bigger year than he had, and it was interesting to kind of hear Evan echo that as well. And he said, quote, "I fully believe that we were going to be AFC champions." So he believed in the Broncos, and it seems like he just wants the Broncos to believe in him more on the offensive side moving forward. He wanted to contribute more to the team, but he could only control what he could control. All right, now let's get to a big theme that was in here today, the confidence in Bo Nix. Despite Bo not playing yesterday after breaking his ankle in the divisional round in the Broncos win over the Bills, these guys have 100% confidence in Bo, which is really the most important thing coming out of this season. Alex Singleton said, quote, "Bo balled out all year." Talanoa Hufanga said Bo is special, and he was amazed by the comebacks. He said he would just do it every single week. We need him, and he'd come through when it mattered the most. Singleton said teams look for quarterbacks. There's many teams looking for quarterbacks, and the Broncos have theirs. And Alex also said that the injury that Bo sustained is only going to fuel him maybe for the next 20 years. So the Broncos believe that they will be back in this position next year, and they believe that Bo is going to be a big reason for it. Finally, got some coaching news here, and man, did we learn maybe a little something big today. But before I get to Vance Joseph's news, Davis Webb just wrapped up his interview to be the Bills head coach. Of course, he's very good friends with Josh Allen, and then he also this afternoon has an interview to become the Raiders head coach. So Davis Webb, one of the hottest coaching candidates out there, could potentially leave for Josh Allen or could potentially leave to become the Raiders head coach. Teams view him as the next Sean McVay. I personally think he does get a job in this cycle because of how he is viewed, and man, it would be incredible to go from quarterback coach to that head coaching position around the league. And the final piece of news that we learned today, Vance Joseph can now have a second interview with the Arizona Cardinals, can have interviews with other teams right now, and he is expected to do that this week. But Jonathan Cooper dropped a fascinating tidbit when he was talking about how good of a coach Vance Joseph is. He said he's the best defensive coordinator I've ever had. And then he stopped himself because he said, I don't know what Vance has told you guys yet, but Cooper seemed excited. Makes me potentially believe that Vance has told them he might be staying or that he might be taking a job. I think Vance might have his future decided already, but might just go through with a couple of interviews. But that kind of gave me hope that Vance could be back with the Broncos, which would be huge. These players absolutely love him, and understandably so. They were an excellent defense this year. That's all that we learned today, but don't go anywhere because we're going to hear from Sean Payton, George Payton, and Greg Penner later this week. So like this, subscribe, and we'll see you later this week for more Broncos news.